And on that note, I would like to welcome back to the stage the curator of this conference, the brains of the operation, Michela Magas, for a few closing remarks to wrap this discussion up and take it to the next stage. Then what we should do next. I'll move my chair out of your way.
I don't know about brains of the operation. I think there are very, very many brains in this operation. And in fact, I am very, very happy that there were so many great minds involved in this. And as I say, we will keep talking to these great minds and to all of you who have got involved online, because this will carry on. This is not where it ends. We are turning this into recommendations. We are writing papers that will be presented to politicians. For instance, the next stage is with the German government. We're presenting a paper to them. And Bernd will tell us a little bit more about this in a little while. But I wanted to actually go through what sort of, I made lots and lots of notes here. So I'm going to try and obviously it's very difficult to summarize. So much has been said and so many topics have been covered, and we will do a more comprehensive summary later. But just a few things to remind you. One thing that is actually quite shocking to me, Barbara Stacher has actually confirmed that there is no legislation to support all of these CCI activities within the European Commission. So as she mentioned, in 1993, as the legislation was set then, and this is how it still stands, the remit of the European Commission, according to legislation, it's simply to support cultural development in individual member states. Now, this is something that is, as I say, very, very remarkable what Commissioner Gabriel is managing to do within that situation, because obviously there is no legislative support to support these activities, but they are happening nevertheless. So, and they're happening at such a scale. So, Maria Gabriel's speech yesterday was incredible to me. We heard how she recommended creative labs to be included in the Cultural Europe program, and we just heard how much experimentation, live experimentation, from the side of computer scientists, from AI specialists, AI ethics specialists, from all of the people who are involved across the different disciplines, and of course from creative practitioners and people who want to get involved with citizens, how much those are important in order for us to really test drive what new technologies can do, the new scenarios we can imagine, set up, understand really what happens to people on the ground, understand how they react to technologies, what technologies do to them before they get released to the wider public, and then we end up with potentially very big problems. So this was a really welcome initiative, and also within this context, just how much the CCI have been included in the upcoming Horizon program, as well as the European Innovation Council and the European Institute of Innovation Technology, which is about to roll out this CCI kick. Now, we heard a great deal more related to legislation, in the sense that it's also needed in terms of revamping the new systems for intellectual property. This was mentioned both in panels yesterday and also by Eva Kaili, member of the European Parliament, today. And because obviously intellectual property now is inbuilt into this dynamic systems, or it rather needs to be, otherwise it will simply be lagging behind. You just cannot catch up with something that's so dynamic and fast evolving unless you set up dynamic smart contracts which can update together with the system, or in line with changing scenarios. Now, let's just imagine that as a music file. A music file has metadata, which is at the front, something that you can see as the basic sort of bits of information about a music file. You could set it up in the same way. You can have a basic one-page contract that is setting the basic parameters of a contractual arrangement or an intellectual property, but then linked to conditions and terms which can then further cover data, clauses, permissions, release mechanisms. And these can be dynamically updated depending on the rising use cases, which of course we never can predict entirely in advance, as we all know. So this is very much to do with sort of legislation, and there's a lot more to be talked about this, and it is being talked about in the European Commission. But of course, as Lucas Evers has mentioned yesterday, Lucas Evers from the VAR, he said it's not just about creating industry commons markets, it's also about creating a space for active engagement of citizens, to be integrating in both in creating and in governance processes. Now, why? It's not just because we want to be democratic, it's also because we need to cut through the jargon. We mentioned about the fact that we keep dropping buzzwords, and I do apologize if I am doing that while I'm talking, and it's for the sake of efficiency. And I can tell you also why we use buzzwords in policy. It's actually, it's a domain related issue, is that each one of these so-called buzzwords for the public just gets really tired of them, and acronyms, is because behind it lies usually several years of constant campaigning and hard work, so that this particular, what this buzzword usually stands for, a particular policy, gets implemented. And this is why when we refer to it, we don't go through explaining the entire process and how much hard work has gone into it, but we just put the buzzword forward. So yes, that is a problem with the domain-specific language, which also happens in science, which also happens actually in the creative industries. We use certain words that are very particular to us. Now, cutting through the jargon, well, involving people in the process does help us do that, because we need to explain to them in what we call plain language, or at least language which is understandable to a wider population. Creative industries actually happen to be in charge of that usually in most of this kind of activities. When we need to explain something, whether it be science, whether it be engineering, whether it be policy, we tend to get engaged in order to do that. And we can really generate the systems for common understanding, and I think it's our duty to do so. We can use system design to support this. We have the tools in this sector to do that. The other reason why we need to involve citizens in real experimentation is to flag up bias. Now, bias in marketing is considered a really, really good thing. Rather, it's called customization. And in fact, we have huge respect for some of our members of our community who are working in this field, because it's actually a really, really intelligent field, and there's a lot to learn from it. However, bias, as we have witnessed, can be a really serious problem. So firstly, for instance, we started our conference yesterday with a very strong injection on inclusion, and we heard from our Sami professor and the use cases there, and we really hope that this will be taken seriously and taken forward. But also we've been interacting between various different cities, for instance, Umeå, Aveiro, Mannheim and Tirana. You couldn't have things more widely geographically distributed, but actually they have a common culture. It was very clear from what people were saying. They were agreeing with each other. They have the same approach. They have a common culture which is very pan-European in that sense. So the fact that these cities are what they're doing very much is being advocated here is experiment and co-create together with their citizens and implement the results. This is fantastic. Now, I will use a quote from Marlene Johansson, who's from Expression, the incubator here in Umeå, and she said, resilience and sustainability is achieved by creative practitioners being strongly rooted in the local ecosystem. And I think all of those cities will very much agree, and this is exactly what they're implemented. And by the way, Marlene, you got a comment in chat which says, great comments, great, says yay. This is a lovely kind of chat reaction, yay, and like hands, show of hands. Thank you, Marlene, for speaking for all of us. Which, you know, this is again, we're saying about bridging languages. This is the way you talk in chat in social media, and we should actually quote it as it says, yay. So, on the other hand, from chat, and thank you to Martin Happel from Prague for raising this, he was pointing us to the campaign where thousands of developers complained to Springer, the publisher, to stop them from publishing a paper on affect recognition. This is an AI automatized system. It's a technology that scans parts of your body, not just to identify you, but also to draw inferences about your most innermost feelings. And they wrote saying the circulation of this work by a major publisher like Springer would represent a significant step towards the legitimization and application of repeatedly debunked socially harmful research in the real world. Well, this links us very much to the new value systems, or rather porting the real values that we also carry within us into the new technologies. And we received a huge amount of comments about Annette Nowak's how great Annette Nowak's presentation was. Really, a lot of those reactions, there are several I could read here. There are some fantastic suggestions, both in terms of how we deal with the technology aspects, and also people like Barbara Stacher intervening and saying, well, I think it's not only about the media literacy as of the programmers, but rather about the business model of the platform the programmers work for. The platform simply does profit maximization and client market segmentation and targeting. So in a sense, that's within their logic. So how to address this? And for instance, in that sense, I would personally suggest different sets of incentives, and I think incentivization is something also that RISE is working on very much. It's not about how to manipulate behavior, it's about incentives. It's about giving people something that is beneficial to them, that they will react to, and it will cause beneficial behavior for society. RISE, the Research Institutes of Sweden, because I kept on thinking Research Innovation, Research Institutes of Sweden. So and on that note, Ambra Trotto said something really wonderful. I mean, said many wonderful things, but one of them that I actually had the chance to quickly write down, which is technology systems need to be set up to enable people to be autonomous and empathetic towards others. Thank you for that. And so in that sense, we go to Virginia Dignam on responsible AI, who says these questions cannot be answered by sciences alone, and the technologies need to be truly usable and adaptable to the cultural space. And it's not about a choice between ethics and innovation. It means innovating in the way that benefits people, the planet, and the environment. And so it's not about giving the responsibility to the machine, you know, the computer says phenomenon, in a way that discharges your own responsibility. What's great is that Amy Lutfi, who contributed to this discussion, I mean, we've worked with Amy. Amy is probably unique in understanding from a computer scientist point of view just how much experimentation is important when it comes to AI and robotics and all these new systems. And we've worked with Amy on this in Örebro, and basically, she said we currently lack safe testing environments for AI technologies because we are not sure what can or cannot be do with AI, and we cannot progress without testing. And of course, here the initiative by Commissioner Gabriel of encouraging creative labs, and also Bror Salmanin's comments on living labs are incredibly important. In fact, he said ecosystems are a fluid space for collisions across cultures and disciplines. And Valentina Montalto said that creating a common vision may be one of the ways in which we then bridge disciplines. And of course, it's not about being top down, but it needs to come from society. I think there have been many people who link on this statement, gathering of brains or gathering of minds and resources, very much so. And so Bror recommends we need bridges like curators, kind of compared to curators, and orchestrators who are compared to conductors. And we currently don't have titles for those kinds of people. In fact, someone wrote, and I'm trying to find this, someone said, let me just see who that was. Sorry, I will just, Irene Popoli, who is a museum strategy consultancy from Verona in Italy. She says, I absolutely agree with Professor Salmalin in an interfield, as an interfield interdisciplinary professional. By the way, accessibility, guys, I'm 52 and I'm having trouble reading this. Accessibility. As an interfield interdisciplinary professional, I can confirm that bridges are not often perceived as needed figures, although they are the ones on which innovation often depends, at least in the CCI. I'm also an academic professor, and I can confirm that universities have not yet acknowledged the necessity to develop such profiles. So, bridging between disciplines, I think the CCI have a fantastic role on that. We will take this conversation forward. I have only managed to skim the surface. And what I'd like Bernd to do now is to tell us about where we're going from here and what are the activities that he has planned for us. Bernd, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michela. But before I take you into the future, I really have to say, I think for everybody here in the digital room and in Umeå, thanks so much to you and Andrew for this inspirational 2 days and for all the inspirations lying ahead of us. And I think you are really a good role model of exactly this bridge builder, those curators we are talking of. So my task now is to look again at the wider context, what is happening in the next step in this year on the European agenda. You all know Europe needs and wants to be carbon free until 2050, the European Green Deal. The COVID crisis happened, the economic crisis happened, and exactly in this kind of triple unfolding crisis we are debating now. And we are seeing parallel that the European member states are negotiating finally the budgets for the next year. Exactly in this situation, in this overall framework, we are working on creating new ideas for funding schemes in innovation and crisis help for the next year. And this conference will bring an input into the European Creative Industry Summit, which is starting on September 24th online on a session called Solidarity for Charity to also commemorate with the mayor of Bergamo the deaths and the ills of this COVID crisis. And from there on, we will have breakout sessions to talk about innovations, taking us out of this crisis, innovations beyond the crisis, innovations which go into other sectors, innovations into the field of governmental organization, creative bureaucracy. That's another bridge we need to build. And also creativity in education. This all will result in papers and documents, and a final document then presented to the policymakers in Europe. And it will be presented first instance online at the 28th of October with the EU Commissioner Gabriel, the German Finance Minister Altmaier, and EIT Director Martin Kern, who was here yesterday as well. So I really hope to win you, not only to be part of those online sessions, but really to contribute to those papers we are writing, to feed them into policymaking. We have been talking about those bridges, and I think those next 3 months are the bridge we need to build ourselves and we need to walk over to make the next funding period a good success, despite all those crises for the cultural creative industries. Yeah, Michela,
right.
Back to you.
So thank you for this. As I said, we've been taking these on into these sessions, and watch out for the conference in Berlin, which is 28th of October. So do participate in this, the same as you have with this one, and help us to get to the right kind of recommendations which can be rolled into policy. And it is really your voices that we need to hear. Now, on that note, I would like to invite to the stage. You have not, it's not. We never do this alone. It's a big team, and there are some ringleaders and initiators of some of these events, without whom we would not be able to do this. So, on that note, I would like to invite to the stage Anna Olofsson, who was head of marketing for Umeå City of Culture, still head of Umeå head of city marketing rather, for business and for culture in this city, and Albert Edman, who used to be in charge in the city, and now it's actually at RISE, in charge of all of European projects. To join us on stage, we are extremely grateful that you started this conversation. It was the two of you who actually really wanted to plant a flag in the ground and say, okay, how can we kickstart this conversation? How can we create an event that would create this debate? And we are very grateful that you've done that. You can see just how beneficial it has been for both our community and the CCI community for the discussion, but also for all of the people following us from the European Commission and across Europe and the rest of the world.
So thank you so much for making this happen. We really appreciate it.
Couldn't do it without you. You've been marvelous.
Well,
This is a marvelous opportunity.
Wonderful, thank you. So we have to thank Umeå Kommun, we have to thank RISE, Expression Umeå, Region Västerbotten, and the board of the Industry Commons Foundation. I also want to say, because I've been on that side as well, a special thanks to our amazing tech team that has made this possible, because this has been quite an accomplishment, technologically speaking. So Olof from Heya, who has pulled all the strings and brought everything together, from Heya Event Bureau, Jenny and Arvid from Red Carpet Media, Robert and the two Thomases from Umeå Sen Technique, and also Hans and Peter, our Zoom technicians, which I'm pretty sure this time last year wasn't even a job. So it's been an amazing achievement that we have taken conferences, I think, forward a little bit as well. And I think there's people who will be picking up the thread and running from here. So I want to say a huge thanks and congratulations to, especially to the brilliant Anders Gunnarsson, the Umeå creator of the Coeo online platform that we've all been using. Just amazing, and congratulations. This is really quite an achievement. So thank you to everybody for coming. Thank you to everybody you've seen on your screen. Thank you for being online virtually, and we hope to continue this conversation.
Oh, Anna's been given a microphone, so you're
Please.
welcome to.
Well, I was just joining the choir of appraisals because this has been marvelous. And as you said, most of the stuff is still undone, so we just have to sort of continue. But this is a marvelous platform, and there has been so many interesting questions raised.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'll just second that, and thank you also to Andrew and Michela for an amazing job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's been teamwork, definitely teamwork. We usually bring everybody on stage in the last bit, but if we brought all of the technicians, everybody, then I think
it would stop. So we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, and hope to talk soon.
Thank you all. Thank you.